Life gets ill, homie, we got bills. More than one kid, a boss we could kill. Aches and pains all hurt, we take pills. Dennis gotta use a drill.
Everybody, welcome back to PodCats LG, the Los Gatos podcast. The Los Gatos podcast. I am, of course, here with my partner in crime, Catherine Summers, who is the executive director at the Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce. I like saying that because I think it makes you nervous somehow that you're affiliated with this stellar production. Do you want to say hi?
I'd love to say hi. And since you mentioned the Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce, I do have to give a shout out to our board of directors, who was actually very in favor of us doing this podcast to really try to engage the citizens of Los Gatos and the businesses and, you know, everyone from the business to the people who work for the town government to the residents, you know, and really so that we can have conversations about some of the harder things to talk about.
I'm going to further that shout out and say that the Chamber of Commerce, in my opinion, does an amazing job. Now, I am, full disclosure, on the board. But I just think you and the chamber and everybody else on the board, it has the town's very best interest at heart. And I don't think that's always an easy path. I don't think democracy is a messy, slow process. And so I think the chamber does an amazing job of playing their role and doing their best to stay in their lane, but offering the kinds of inside information that the town needs to support the business community, which I think supports the town. That's one of the reasons we all like it here. I'm going to make an introduction. Mm-hmm. We've still got Rob Moore with us. So he moved seats, though, because we needed to change the scenery just a little. And to Rob's right, we've got Lee Fagot. And right before the cameras went on, I was going to introduce Lee Fagot as being here with the Democracy Tent. But you are not here with Democracy Tent.
No.
You are here on your own as a citizen of this town.
Right.
Okay.
Democracy Tent, we are not allowed as an organization to advocate for any issue. I am the facilitator. I've been involved with Democracy Tent since its inception quite a number of years ago, about 6 years ago. And I have been a resident of Los Gatos for almost 26 years now myself. Love this community. I've lived in 3 other countries besides this one. And my wife and I have lived in 11 different houses over our relationship.
Not in Los Gatos.
No, not in Los Gatos. Oh. We lived in some apartments off of Lark Avenue when we first moved here for our daughter to start high school. She graduated from Los Gatos High School, and we're living in the house that we have now for 24 years.
Here in Los Gatos?
Here in Los Gatos.
Okay.
And we love it here.
And Democracy Tent, you said, is not, it just doesn't support voicing their opinions on...
No.
It is to...
That kind of confused me just a little bit, because I see you guys publishing things, and I see the name in print.
Yes.
So how are you guys getting into newspapers?
Los Gatos Democracy Tent is an organization that meets routinely, usually Monday mornings, 10:30 to noon, and it facilitates conversation on issues that are of relevance in our local community. We're very engaged in trying to bring more people together in the concept of democracy to talk about local issues. Again, we can't advocate as an organization for any issue, but what we can and should do is get the community to get more information. We challenge people to make sure they're focused on facts. It has to be fact-based. Work with our elected officials, work with the town staff and other agencies to try and keep our community moving forward in a comfortable, progressive, and safe way.
Bottom line, Brian, they thought of our idea before we did.
And so
we're just now putting it in front of some cameras.
You know what, though? I think it's now as I'm puzzling the pieces together. Democracy Tent, Los Gatos Community Alliance, Rob, me, you. We actually all are talking about the same thing. We just maybe have slightly different paths by which we want to arrive there, whatever there is. And so I appreciate that. Tell me one more time where and how often you meet.
We meet every Monday morning, except this coming Monday because of the holiday, at 10:30 till noon. We meet at the Adult Rec Center, room 214 upstairs. And we also are on Zoom.
Okay.
And we've been doing Zoom since COVID.
And anybody
Either
can
way,
just show up.
Anybody can show up.
Morning, every single Monday except holidays.
Correct.
How many people are in attendance typically?
Between 15 and 20. It depends on the topic.
So
and people
this is
bring
where we're
the topics.
breaking down, right? You guys are there every Monday talking about this very subject? And you have 15 or 20 people out of 32,000?
Yeah. And That includes, often we had the one or two of the town council members come. We often had the town attorney attend, and we would invite speakers to come in and speak about issues of relevance. We just spoke this past Monday on homelessness in the town of Los Gatos.
In the town of Los Gatos.
And we had a sergeant with the Los Gatos Montessorino Police Department speak with us. It was a very good conversation. In fact, so much so that we want to continue it again because there were more issues that were being raised. And
we
had
did have this idea first. And I know all we did was add stupid microphones and headphones and a cat with a parrot.
And air conditioning, though. We got air conditioning.
Does the adult rec center have air conditioning?
The adult rec center, actually, sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it also is funded through the town, and therefore partially funded.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah,
eventually.
that's another
that's
issue.
not a today thing, but
All
that
right,
is on our agenda.
Yeah, we got to get to the heart of the matter here.
Yes.
We don't have a ton of time.
Okay.
So I know that you were listening to the first part of this episode that we did, and that you had some comments that you wanted to make on facts that maybe we had wrong.
Correct. I mentioned before about Blossom Manor is not actually in the town. It's the unincorporated area.
It is an unincorporated area.
Correct.
There are multiple unincorporated areas.
There are. They're parcels.
Yeah.
That the town is working on its 2040 general plan, and again, I'm speaking as an individual, very encouraged to see a lot of the action that's being taken to looking at new issues of racial inclusion, that more environmental justice, and to reach towards more affordable housing in the community. I think we're all in alignment that we want to see that occur because we need for the next generations to be able to afford to live here. I'm going to use as an example my own house. As I mentioned, we've had it for about 25 years. It's increased in value over $3 million based on a house that just sold. It's the same floor plan as our house.
That was like a month ago.
And yeah, and what's happened is I've cut the grass, so that's brought that $3 million up. You know, it's crazy what's happening to prices. Our daughter and son-in-law and their kids can't afford to live here, and they're doing very well financially, but it's a reach. So I'm concerned that whenever we go over to their house and have dinner or something with them, I always watch to make sure I see them eat from that bowl first before I do. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you said one thing. You said that there are steps being taken to promote racial inclusion.
Yes.
In
the general plan.
In the general plan, can you guys illuminate what steps those are, or
to ensure that in the ordinances, in the guidance, in work with the public services, police and so forth, that they are not putting in place any barriers to prohibit people from coming in.
So they're not getting in the way.
Correct.
They're not necessarily doing anything proactive. They're just trying to stay out of the way.
Correct.
Okay.
And on that topic of what is proactive and it isn't, the town is not going to build any of these houses.
Right.
It is important.
It is that developers have to come in.
When we had Kiley out here, I was wondering who is going to build these houses, actually.
That is
Correct.
a good point.
Yeah,
And
and that's a big
Yes.
point.
Mm-hmm.
And we've invited different developers to come speak to us at Democracy 10 on this issue. And it's been very eye-opening to learn what the costs are, what the barriers are, the difficulty, and what the town can do to try and mediate some of that. And we've been working with council members because the decisions have to be made by the council, who direct the town staff to implement some of these efficiencies that could help reduce the cost and the barriers and the timelines, which time is money.
All right, so I'm going to get in kind of the heart of it, all right?
Yep.
Because you and I have talked, off and on over the year, or whatever, we talk all the time. But when you think of affordable housing, and I know you want your daughter and son-in-law to live here, but what is how do you feel about another 2,000 units in town? I mean, which we have to build, but 2,000 or 4,000 units, I mean, does the buck stop somewhere with you?
Yeah. Here's my big concern with what's being looked at in the draft general plan as it is currently. which is going to be going to the town council the 20th of June to make some decisions. It provides a reduction or an increase in the height in many areas of the town, to going from 25 feet to 40 feet height. It increases the density in many areas from 2 to 4 units per acre to 40 units per acre. I can give you all the specifics by site. But all that the town is doing is identifying the sites and putting in place what these conditions can be to build these units. If, however, you total up all of the number of units that could be built in these sites under these new guidance documents, it's not going to be 3,000 or 4,000 units. It's going to be almost 12,000 housing units. It would almost double the number of housing units in the town of Los Gatos.
Excellent. We were talking about how do you jump from 2,000 or 4,000 units to 13 or 14,000 units, right? And as I'm understanding it, what you mean is that they're creating space enough that if every unit were built and if we maximized all of the allowed space, we could potentially get to 13 or 14,000 units if the builders were cramming density and really maximizing all of the potential that the town gave them. That's what we're talking about.
That is exactly it.
Okay, so I just don't want it to sound like we're going to have 13 or 14,000 new units, really, because from what I'm understanding, the builders aren't going to build that many units.
However, that is correct. However, if the town has ordinances and if it puts in the general plan these provisions that would allow that kind of density, that kind of height, that number of units per parcel, developers could come in, and with some of the goofiness coming out of Sacramento, some of the recent legislation, that Prop 9 and several others, this would allow developers by right to be able to come in. They don't have to get approval from the neighborhood. They just have to meet the minimum town requirement, and they can build to that height, to that density, and that's how we get to it's actually 14,600 units. If you take what is in the draft plan right now, that's the maximum number of units in the next 20 years.
Are you on board with that?
I am not on board with building 14,000 units.
Are you on board with the idea that the general plan allows for 14,000 units?
Yeah. So I haven't done the same math.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know that number, but I believe that we are, because we're allowing for more density, you're allowing for more parcels around the town to get built more densely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that doesn't worry you?
No, so that doesn't worry me, because in the last RENA cycle, we were, you might have these numbers.
I do.
We had to build about 600 units. That
619 units.
619 units. And how many did we build?
279.
279. So not even half. And so we only, in the last 8 years, we didn't even build 300 units. And so I'm not super concerned, because I don't think we're going to hit the 2,000 units. Yeah. And so I think allowing, creating different spaces around town to have the opportunity to build is the only way we're going to get close to meeting the RENA requirements.
This is what I asked you before, is there somebody out there fear-mongering? And I'm not saying it's you, Lee. I'm just saying that when we toss out these big numbers, I think that's the thing that people grab a hold of.
That is. I mean, all of a sudden people think we're going to have 31,000 more people in Los Gatos.
That's what I'm reading here in the Los Gatos.
Right. And so first of all, you do have to ask yourself, we do not have developers lined up at our door. We never have.
No.
They don't necessarily want to come to Los Gatos to build. It doesn't pencil out.
It's a hard place to build.
It's a hard place to build. So it's highly unlikely that we'll get 2,000 units, let alone 14,000. So that fear is just an interesting generational thing, or is it, really getting to the heart of it? Why are we so...
because it could happen.
It's possible, particularly under some of the new legislation coming out of Sacramento.
It's a fear because it's real. It's potentially real, right? This is why you buy auto insurance or homeowners insurance, right? Because your house could burn down.
And I think the fear about Sacramento is actually very legitimate. I think that Sacramento continues to create these new ordinances and new things that do allow for housing that we might not want in Los Gatos. But to me, that's an argument for actually building the housing and trying our best to meet those RENA numbers, because I think the more we miss those numbers, the more the state is going to say, well, you're not doing your job, so we're going to do it for you.
I agree. Take control.
And that's where I'm going as well.
Yeah.
That there are ways to deal with this, and it is to change some of the elements in the housing element, some of the requirements, some of the allowances to scale it back to something more reasonable, number one, and number two, to put in place, the town needs to put in place procedures that put more efficiency for developers to be able to come in, some cost reduction to allow developers to come in and put fourplexes and units that can accommodate a growing population and put it at a more affordable pricing.
Yeah.
That's what's
Reduce
really
the number
missing
of
in
parking.
town.
I mean, again, he's talking about reducing the number of parking spots,
That are required.
That are required.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is it possible that up on the boulevard there could eventually be a 60-unit building? I mean, is that the kind of thing that we're talking about? If we're increasing the height and the
Yeah.
density, and could you see a large sort of more city-like building up there on the boulevard?
You're going to see retail at the street level.
Yeah.
You're going to see housing above.
Yeah.
And on Los Gatos Boulevard, there's already an application in for such a thing.
At the what site?
At right across from the North 40. I can't think of the name of the little street. It's an empty lot right now. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
But the developer has proposed
Yeah.
retail units, parking spaces. He's built that in, and the housing units.
How many units?
And
Do you know?
they're 1 and 2 bedroom housing units, and I think they're a total of 8.
Oh, 8.
And
Still, that doesn't seem that ominous to me.
but it sets precedent in that area.
Uh-huh.
Housing above retail.
Yeah.
And-
which, by the way, everyone seems to really love at Santana Row. I mean, we can get like down into the weeds about how Santana Row affected the downtown in San Jose, which I don't want to do.
So I want to go back more specifically to the number of 1900 plus 15% overage, right? Was the RENA number.
1993, 15%.
Of that, if it's my understanding, 831 of those are below market rate housing.
Right.
And because this is kind of a conversation about affordable housing, what is a below market rate unit, and what does that look like, and what does that sell for in Los Gatos?
It's indexed to the household income with single, double, 4 people in a household. There are different levels like that. And it is a percentage. They take that for the county. It's countywide, not for the town of Los Gatos. Although the town could put in the housing element, that requirement that it be indexed to the housing, the income levels in Los Gatos, which would be a little different, and index it that way, but it hasn't. And I
The number would go up if they indexed it to Los Gatos.
correct. And at the same time, it may then be a tool that would allow developers to come in and get additional funding through grants, through other means.
But now you're
to bring
talking about a
funding in.
pretty high number if you're indexing it against the
You mean affordability wise?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not, yeah, okay.
And
'Cause
an
that's the
important
reality.
piece
Yeah.
is that there's different kinds of affordability too, and
Yes.
each of these different affordability are required per the housing element and the general plan. and all
Required
these
by
things.
whom? The state or the town?
By the state, yeah. So per the housing element, and so there's different categories, and they're moderate, they're very low income, they're extremely low income. I think there's 5 different categories of affordability level with varying levels of with varying numbers for how many you need to build and varying levels for how much that means.
If we were to build 3,000 more units, let's just say we wound up at that number, how many affordable units would be in that mix?
831 are supposed to be.
831
Yeah.
or supposed to be.
Well, are mandated
Was
to
the
be
North
built.
40 designated to have more affordable units than it wound up with?
No,
Okay.
that was a mistake that was made,
Okay.
and that's what led to some of the litigation.
I see.
And it's been corrected with the phase 2
Oh,
specific plan, so that there's now
they're
a
making
requirement.
up for that deficit.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
These 49 affordable units were built in the North 40
And it was
phase.
supposed to be how many?
I don't know how many it's supposed to be.
Initially, they thought it was going to be something in the order of 70, I think.
Okay.
70 something.
Okay.
I don't remember
So
the
we fell
exact
short
number.
by about 30%-ish.
And interestingly about those units that we talk about, like what does affordable housing look like in Los Gatos, those are all for seniors, specifically designated for seniors. I believe they're 55 plus. And so you have to be 55 years or older and be making below a certain income to live in those units. And so when I think people think about, poverty and tenements and those sorts of things, really this is just so grandpa and grandma can afford to stay in Los Gatos.
So my mom can go and stay here in
Absolutely.
town and have a unit to live in. Do you know what that income level is? Or it varies per what the unit is?
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, so Leah, again, I'm going to put you on the spot.
What a surprise.
I know.
Does she do that a lot?
So
Yeah.
the again, and I know that, again, the fear, and I kind of like that word that we brought in. I think people think that the character or the charm of Los Gatos, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but will change because we are going to have, be it younger people or people that are bringing different ideas into town that maybe we haven't always been, or we don't think is, having been here for 26 years, it's not what you would like to see in Los Gatos. So does that worry you, or you're open to?
It doesn't worry me. I have a lot of faith in the next generations coming along. For example, last night I was at the high school district's meeting, which was held at Los Gatos High School in the library, and I listened to a group of students give presentations on what they're learning in new classes being offered at the high school in diversity and equity. And it was incredible. And at the end of the meeting, I spoke, I wanted to say, I want to re-enroll in high school and take that course, because it was so impressive to see what the next generation is doing. These were, the speakers were sophomores and seniors at Los Gatos High School. And they may be your competition running for the town council if they were only 18.
And how about some of your colleagues? I mean, because you hear a lot, out there in your dinner parties and on the golf course.
Remind me what you're asking exactly.
Hey everybody, I want to say thank you so much for tuning into PodCats. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen or watch. I'm down here at the Hardcore Barber in Los Gatos, and just want to take a second to give a shout out to our sponsors and our supporters. First of all, I want to say thank you to KCAT for having us down, for recording the show, for helping us with all the technical stuff. KCAT has been absolutely amazing. Secondly, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has been a huge supporter. They've also sponsored the show, and so we want to just tell you that they're doing an amazing job. If you're not involved with the Chamber, you should be. Thirdly, I want to say thank you to Brian and Dan Real Estate. Brian and Dan, Silicon Valley Real Estate. Dan has been a huge fan of PodCats, and we're also sponsoring the show. And lastly, then, the brokerage that we work for, which is Christie's International Real Estate Sereno, formerly known as Sereno Group, has been a massive sponsor. Everybody should be using Sereno. Christie's International Sereno, the best brokerage here in Los Gatos, bar none. Thank you again for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And now we're going to get you back to the show.
I'm asking, I think that some of the folks in town are they're worried that they're going to lose their sense of identity in the town as they've always known it.
Is this a black and brown question?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's
it may be in the back of a couple.
What does that mean?
For example, workforce housing. I mean, workforce housing is a huge issue. So, are you going to be okay, or is it still going to be the same town if your gardener's living downtown? I mean, and this town, let's be clear. This is the topic we're having here, is that everybody here has services that are provided from people who are driving from all over everywhere else.
Well, all the retail downtown, if you want to get coffee,
retail,
right?
All the restaurants, everybody. None of those people cannot afford to live here. So the question is, does Los Gatos like to be elite like that? And all of our service workers live on the other side, outside the bubble, or are we opening the doors and saying we want to all be in this together?
So some of the people in the community that I've been talking to about this issue, specifically this issue, is generally, not everyone, but most want to be able to work with these folks to help them acclimate into town. They want to be able to help these folks become part of the community, because we've been, again, this is the group we've been talking about this, that's kind of how we grew up. You know, I didn't inherit anything at all from, and that's fine. We needed to grow up, and I was just at a family reunion. And this is exactly what we were all talking about, and we need to provide this for the next generation. We need to provide this to the people who are providing services to us. The wait staff, as you were pointing out, they all need to be able to live closer to where they're working and to be part of the community. And to me, that would be a significant improvement in the character of the town. It's not going to change the town in a way that is negative, but I think it's going to allow us to pedal a little faster and maybe be positive as well going
then
forward.
Why are there such
No, just to add on to that, and you think about, right, these concerns, a lot of these housing concerns are also transportation concerns, parking concerns, all of these things.
Yeah.
If you can allow the folks who are working in town to, instead of needing a car and driving to work, bike, and a lot of folks who, you know, in other cities, people ride bikes because it's less expensive. It doesn't cost gas, and with the gas prices, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of reasons to not drive your car, and so I think it's an even better reason to have people, you know, building more affordable housing is going to decrease traffic.
Yeah.
And here's another part of this equation. The town financially is having troubles. We're projecting to have some negative numbers in the town budget going forward. The next 5-year projections we're going to be in decline. So the town needs to start doing some things to put some efficiency in place, including allowing these types of developments so that we can bring in more people who live locally, work locally, and then are able to contribute
Spend
that way
locally.
to the community and create a broader sense of community.
So why did I think that we were having you on here today and that you were going
Right.
to be really like
Right.
the opposite?
Well,
everything
because you
said
haven't said anything that I can argue with yet.
What would
Yeah.
you say
But I
that you would
expect-
argue with?
That the town should subsidize affordable housing. I don't think
That
that
they
the
should,
town
or incentivize builders to come and build? Would that be in the same
put some
category?
efficiency in place. Yes,
But no tax
but-
incentives or things like that.
correct.
But I don't think we're going to challenge you on that either. Robert,
Well,
you
we can't
challenge
afford
that?
it. No.
No, the town doesn't have any money.
Yeah. Okay. Go
But
on with another.
but a
the
couple of
teeth
years
in
ago,
this?
that was a topic.
Where's the teeth in this? How
In
do
affordable housing.
because the state's mandating it. Is that what you mean?
No, are you asking where is the teeth in
Where-
actually mandating that affordable housing gets built?
Yeah,
There's
we can all
not.
sit around here and talk a great game, but how does this actually?
Yeah,
get done?
so there's not
we
a-
built 200 out of 600
Yeah.
in the last 8 years. Now we want another 2,000.
Yeah.
How does this actually happen?
Yeah, so so specifically with affordable housing, when you build over 5 units, one of those units has to be affordable, and so that's just how it works in town. So you have
that is a town ordinance.
That's
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
and so the more you build, the more affordable your units you're going to get built just by nature.
Isn't that to some degree a disincentive for builders to come here and build if they have to build one affordable unit for every 5
It's pretty common.
market rate?
Yeah.
It's pretty common. Yeah. So a lot of
Common that they are disincentivized, or it's just common? in
common
general
that
anyway?
you have
Yeah.
to build
Okay.
affordable.
Throughout
And so it's
California, it's got
different.
bigger.
The numbers are different. I think ours is 20%.
Yes.
But there's 15%, there's 25%, but it's, I don't
20.
think it's a huge disincentive for
It's
builders.
1 in 5.
Yeah.
And there's other
Okay,
ways
so
people
1 in
can-
5.
yeah.
So then what we need is, in order to get the affordable housing numbers, which are, again, remind me, we need 831. We need that times 5 in order to meet those numbers.
Or you can work with nonprofit housing developers or others to get this housing built, which is a lot harder because nonprofit housing developers obviously don't have the capital that for-profit housing developers have. But so I think there's really interesting things that have happened in town, like the Dittos Lane project, where there was going to be, I know it was a lot, but there was going to be affordable housing built on Dittos Lane, and the town was working with Habitat for Humanity, and correct me if I get any of this wrong. The town was working with Habitat for Humanity, and they were going to build. They were going to build about 30 and some change, like 32.
No, Habitat was 14.
Yeah, I think it was about
14 housing
Yeah.
units.
Okay. I think it was original, and then they had to, so.
There was another developer that was going to do 30.
Okay, got it.
So 30 market rate units and 14
No.
below market
No, it
rate.
was
No,
all
just
Oh,
14
another-
below
yeah.
market rate.
Okay.
That's it.
Beautiful
Okay.
project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Great. Could have been great.
And the neighbors really didn't like the project. They didn't want to build denser housing around the area, and there's lots of other things that went into this, but eventually the project blew up because the neighbors and the town, everybody just said, okay, screw it, this is too much work, and now there's 4 single family homes there. And Habitat for Humanity, I've talked with folks from Habitat for Humanity because I work professionally in the nonprofit housing space, and Habitat for Humanity will not come back to Los Gatos because of the headache we gave them, and because of all the money because again, they don't have very much capital. They dumped money into those site plans, into all of that, and we kind of put one over on them.
Yeah.
What headaches did we give them? Lee, give me 1 second. Don't forget that question. You got it?
Yeah.
What headaches did we give them?
So I think a big part was neighborhood pushback, right? And so
why do we listen to those people? Why do they? I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't get a voice, but at the end of the day, we have to build these units. You're laughing.
You're.
But I mean, we have to
talking
build
about,
these
again,
units.
the
Don't we
teeth.
eventually just tell people to get stuffed and deal with it? And if they don't like it, tough.
That's why we have to elect new council members every once in a while, because it was the council who made that decision.
To allow the
neighbors,
the pushback of the neighbors to be the prevailing
To accept
voice.
the neighbors' argument,
Isn't
particularly.
that the thing in this town, though, that the complaints always get the nod? Like, all you got to do is just complain, and you're going to be the voice that the council listens to?
And in some ways, that's legitimate.
There is some of that,
yeah,
for sure.
because
why is that legitimate, though?
I mean, I think there is legitimacy to the neighbors having an opinion, right? And so they get to have an opinion. And then also, I think a big part of this whole issue is that it's hard to blame council members when the only voices they're hearing are voices of opposition. And so they weren't hearing from people that were, either in favor of the project or neutral about the project. Or what I think is a really important voice that inherently gets left out in these conversations is the people that are going to move into those housing units. Because there are lower income people who don't know that this project is going to get built in 5 years, right? And so if they knew in 5 years, oh my God, there's a house that I could live in this beautiful community, I'm going to show up screaming at that, screaming joy at the town council meeting. But they can't because they don't know yet.
You'd be screaming joy except for the fact that you kind of know in the back of your head that it's going to be a massive undertaking to try and get one of those units.
Hence the reason Habitat's
not
coming back.
And so you think, well, that's a snowball's hope in hell to get there. So how do we reach the people that are either neutral or in favor of? Where are they? Where are their voices? Why don't they come up and speak?
They did. I held Democracy Tent. We held several sessions specifically on this. We had 6 different developers come and give proposal presentations. We had some of the council members sit in on some of the sessions. You can't have more than 2 in the room at a time. We did that.
Because of the Brown Act or something?
Because of the Brown Act.
Okay.
And so the bottom line is, and I even went up to Sacramento to try and convince Habitat to come back and try again. I held a couple of meetings up in Sacramento at their
something
headquarters.
wrong if Habitat for Humanity won't come back to the table.
Correct. So here's what the town did. The town agreed with the neighbors that if a developer like Habitat and a couple of the others wanted to put in a new entrance off of College Avenue to go down to Dittos Lane, and that the neighbors didn't want that. However, what the town did was they put in speed bumps, so that reduced the traffic. They still didn't want to go forward with it. So anyway,
yeah, cluster.
What happened? It gets worse. So the town took $3 million property. That's what the town paid with redevelopment agency funds for that Dittos Lane site. They demolished at their cost the 2 houses that were there, and they gave 2 $600,000 interest-free loans to the facilitator. She's not even a developer. I'm not going to get into personalities, but to build 2 houses, each with an accessory dwelling unit. So that's what's going in there.
So 4 units total.
So 4 units total, as Rob said, and the guise initially was that it was going to be for teacher housing. Well, that's illegal. You can't do that. That's discriminatory. So instead, you have to make it below market rate, and the developer whom the facilitator contracted with will then manage the property.
How many units could have gone in there?
Up to 30.
14 or 30.
Yeah, 14 was
and we got 4.
correct.
Yeah.
So I think this is quite telling, and this is where leadership in the town is going to come really into play in the next couple of years. And you said it, putting your teeth into it. We all know, we're all agreeing that we need to build affordable housing. We need some workforce housing, if that's what you want to call it, or whatever, But is there any way that it's going to get done when you have the neighbors?
It sounds to me like every time we have an opportunity, something goes wrong. So far, it just sounds like there's a lot of cracks that stuff can slip through, where you have an opportunity to build 14 or 30 units and you wind up with 4. Or you have the North 40 where there's supposed to be 70 units and you wind up with 40 units.
Right, so that's the reason that you identify a lot of different sites in Los Gatos, because maybe one of them is going to strike gold, and they're going to actually build a unit under the way that we want it built, and so you're going to get 60 units there, and maybe you'll get another 100 somewhere else. The fear is that if you have all those sites, then you might get hundreds of developers lining up at the door.
Historically, we haven't seen that.
No.
But we haven't had the same kind of legislation coming out of the Ringling Brothers Circus in Sacramento,
right,
where they're allowing these kinds of things. So they're facilitating it more than allowing. So that's why we need to engage with our local elected officials and the Sacramento folks to put in some regulations, some rules, some town ordinances that will put some controls, and at the same time continue allowing the right investment in the community to keep the town of Los Gatos moving forward.
Does Democracy Tent, you said, doesn't advocate or take a position?
Correct.
So you guys have never, I'm shifting gears here just a little bit. You guys have never sued the town of Los Gatos. Democracy Tent has never sued the town of Los Gatos.
Democracy Tent has not, no.
Okay.
Individuals who participate in Democracy Tent.
So people that are engaged with Democracy Tent are sometimes filing lawsuits against the town. Yeah.
For example,
I just find it interesting, that there's these things that happen. This is one of the shadowy kind of points about what happens here, right? You say the Ringling Brothers Circus. Okay, fine. You don't like the way the government is managing things, but we have too many people. The lack of inventory has driven prices out of control. We need more inventory in order to get a more balanced market, and yet, when growth is happening, I feel like then somebody just sues the town in order to either slow it down or derail it. And those lawsuits happen not in a forum like this, not in a forum like Democracy Tent, but behind the scenes where nobody really gets a thorough understanding or a full understanding of why those lawsuits are being waged, how long they take. They go on for years, and all of a sudden everybody's just bamboozled and wondering what the hell happened.
And we spend more money on legal fees than...
And the town has to defend it. And nothing gets done. So yeah, go ahead, please.
So, regarding what can get done with lawsuits, it was a group of people in town who put some ballot measures in the last election, one of which was term limit for council members, to stop that. So there can be no more than...
The proposal was for how many terms?
So it's no more than
3 terms.
two 4-year consecutive terms at a time.
Okay.
They put on a ballot measure to establish a finance commission made up of qualified citizens who could vote on issues for a recommendation to the council. Previously, the finance commission was only 2 council members. They invited some citizens to observe, but they could not vote on an issue.
So the finance commission did go into effect. It does exist. But they have no vote.
Because of litigation.
They can make recommendations only.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
okay.
that's a significant improvement and a change than what was there previously.
Okay.
With council members
and the people, as I understand it, the finance commission, each person on the commission each council member gets to appoint one person on the commission.
Correct. And one person has already had to be replaced.
Because why?
Because they weren't qualified.
Oh.
And that was pointed out.
What's the mechanism for removing people from the finance commission?
All right, Rob has.
We're getting off track. I don't want to get into that.
You're writing down some notes there.
Oh no! I'm just writing down notes. I didn't have anything specific enough.
We got about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm just. It is interesting. You start really talking about this.
It's a super complex.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but there is something about, I mean, we're not obviously the wild, wild west anymore, where you were coming out and just kind of claiming your land. And, but on that, we also have put so many rules and regulations and things in place that it's so hard to get anything done. So in a way, while I like the term limits, and I actually do appreciate the Finance Commission and the work that they've done, with every new amendment that you make or new I don't know, how do you feel about that running for council? I mean, do you sometimes think that maybe you should upend things again and kind of start over because we are at a different place?
No, I mean, I don't necessarily have strong opinions about either of those things, but I think what you're saying about the bureaucracy of things is real. And I think you see that in terms of housing and getting housing developments built, that there is significant red tape, especially and for business owners as well. There's significant red tape
and you can find a lawsuit in anything because
Absolutely.
There's so many words around any ordinance.
And then that makes that, again, more expensive. And so with a business, you have to charge more for your food or whatever, and for a housing developer, you have to charge more for rent because it costs you a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of opportunity cost to get that built, and that's not helping anybody.
I've got a couple more minutes left. Can you put your chamber hat on for a second and tell me what you see as being the business community's viewpoint on increased housing?
I think the business community in general really likes the idea of the placemaking. And
explain that term. Can you
so
please explain that term?
The placemaking, for example, I mean, downtown would be obviously one where you could actually do some multi-use housing. And if you had, let's just say, take the Park Plaza area, if all of a sudden, the post office has been there forever, but that...
Yeah. Talk to Rob. I want everybody to be able to hear you.
But for example, if you were to build condominiums on top of the post office, and the post office became a little general store or a restaurant or a boutique or what have you, imagine all of those people down there that we talked about possibly work downtown, recreate downtown, dine, shop. They would do everything downtown. So that foot traffic in and of itself and people living down there would help with sales tax revenues and, and just having more vibrancy, economic vitality in town, which then in turn would bring other businesses to want to come to town. Same thing out on the boulevard. So the placemaking goes all the way out to, let's take Harwood is a great example. Harwood, believe it or not, is in Los Gatos, and a lot of people don't even really know that it is. Half the street on Blossom Hill is Los Gatos, the other half is San Jose. But this one half has been really neglected for years and years, and that is a place that you could actually have a really vibrant neighborhood center. You could have multi-use housing, you could have a donut shop and a coffee shop and a pizza place and then a little general store. I mean, I don't know what you have there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of housing around there already.
There is.
So people do walk there from the neighborhood behind there, but it's not nearly as it's right mostly what it is a big parking lot, and that's part of the problem, right? Is that you have this
Starbucks opened a shop there and closed it.
Yes, and
exactly.
Starbucks,
they were Starbucks can't even make
and
it.
This
but
is
that's
where,
because they didn't have support around them.
So just imagine what that would do to the vitality of the whole town. And I always look at that, with the chamber hat on, is that everything kind of is focused downtown. And it's like, gosh, we have all of these great little communities and people, whose kids are at all different schools and preschools and all ages. And you've got older adults that live out in those communities. But they're congregating somewhat in those areas, but not as much as they should. I mean, I would love to have, we have a promenade downtown. But how great it would be to have a promenade or a block party or out in those neighborhoods as well, because they're really just as important. We all make up a whole.
Los Gatos, Almaden, and Union.
Yeah.
That's another great
beautiful
area.
spot right there.
Yeah, put housing above and retail below.
Yeah.
Where I live in town is right behind the Trader Joe's, and I walk to the Trader Joe's.
Do that, Rob.
Yeah. No, but it's lovely, right? That I can actually just walk to my grocery store, and then there's a couple of the people that own. There's a Vietnamese restaurant right in that same place. They live in the fourplexes, like 3 down from me, and they moved there to open that business, and so what a perfect intersection that is.
Yeah. I think just for the sake of time, we got to wrap it up. I want to apologize again, Lee, to you. I already did to you for the lack of air conditioning today. I don't.
My attorney
nobody
will be
passed out.
No, my attorney will be in contact.
Yeah. You got to fade first.
Oh.
But I want to thank you also, Rob, for coming in today. Catherine, you're a wonderful, beautiful person, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, by the way. Well, you're doing a great job here on PodCats and at the town, at the chamber. Seriously,
I appreciate that.
Everybody really appreciates you. Isn't that right?
I
Wouldn't you
agree. Absolutely agree. What Catherine has done and what the chamber has done for the entire community, it's not just the commercial community, Chamber of Commerce commercial, it's for the whole town has benefited by the work that you have led the chamber to do. So thank you.
I agree. She
Thank you.
always has that the larger picture in mind. It's not just about businesses, it's about how those communities fit together, and this idea of placemaking, I think, involves people, merchants and business people and residents, right? Like they. Yeah. So I think it's a great term.
I am bummed this is over. There is still a lot.
Well, we're going to come back and do this again.
Well, I want to say also that there are a number of meetings that the town is hosting. Mm-hmm. You can go to the town's website and find the link in, and it is up to the community, to everyone, to participate in the process. You get the government you deserve. Thomas Jefferson said that. We need to participate in the process. If we don't sit around and complain and moan. Participate and become part of the solution drivers.
And do that early on in the process.
Yes.
Don't show up at the 11th hour and want to change everything, right? Like there's a lot of work that goes into these decisions for months and years. And if you get there on the last week and say, hell no, it's problematic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, again, we're PodCats LG. You can go to www.podcatslg.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. And what's the other one? What am I missing? Spotify. Did I say Spotify? You can listen, you can watch, and we're going to put some other links below. We really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Rob. And I think that's it.
That was great.
Come together right now. Hit the ground running. Ain't even a discussion. Hold up. Come together right now. Ain't no time for sleep. All we gotta do is come together.